Hey everybody, I'm Dave with Growing the Home Garden. Today I am finally getting around to planting my pepper seeds. I am actually several weeks behind on this just between work, and we had a big snowstorm last week where we ended up with between 4 and 5 inches or so of snow. We had a layer of ice on underneath that, and I just didn't want to have stuff in my garage that needed heat like peppers do. Peppers just really need the heat to grow really well. And so now I think I've got enough time, because we have a long growing season in Tennessee. I may get my peppers in the garden a tiny bit late this year, but that's okay. We've got plenty of time to grow lots of delicious peppers. So I'm going to get started. I've got a bunch of things to plant. We're going to do some peppers. We're going to do some tomatoes. And I've got about 11 varieties of tomatoes I'm going to do. They're all heirloom tomatoes, classics. And we're going to do about 3 varieties of sweet peppers, and the rest are going to be hot peppers, mostly jalapeno, but then there's another one called Pasilla Bajío, and I hope I pronounced that right because I am no good at Spanish, but it is a pepper that you'd use for mole sauce. Anyway, so it's just cool to have some different varieties of peppers in the garden. So let's get started. I'll show you how I'm going to do it this year. I'm changing it up a little bit from what I've done in the past. In the past, I've done something with plastic cups like that, where I will plant in the plastic cup, and then I will use a clear plastic cup over top of it like that, kind of create a mini greenhouse. But instead of doing that this year, I'm going to line them out in my 1020 flats, which a 1020 flat, of course, if you're not familiar, is one that looks like this. They've got 2 types of them. They've got kinds with holes in it, like that on the bottom, and then they've got kinds without holes. So I'm going to take one with holes, and I'm going to put it inside of one that doesn't have holes. That way it keeps all the moisture in while I'm wanting them to germinate. Once I'm done with the germination process, I can take this one out completely, and then it has good drainage at the bottom just fine. So that way I'm not having to come out and water them all the time, but just enough. Plus, it also keeps the moisture in, so that when I have them on my heat mats in the garage, the water's not going everywhere in the garage. And that's one thing you don't want. You don't want to make a huge mess in the garage. So anyway, let's go on and get started. So for the medium for starting these seeds, we're using a seed starting mix from Jiffy Peat, which has a combination of peat moss, coconut coir, and vermiculite in it. And peat moss, if you're concerned about environmental issues and things, you may not want to use that, which is why I like this, because it's got a little bit more of the coconut coir into the product itself. So it's kind of a mixture of it. It is really hard for me to find locally the coconut coir around in availability, but Jiffy Peat makes a pretty decent product. I've used it for a number of years. It is possible that you can go on and make your own seed starting mix using the same kind of combination of stuff and get the raw ingredients and put it together, kind of a third mixture, but sometimes it's just easier to buy it and put it in. So that's what I'm doing here. So we're just going to open this up, and one cool thing here, see up there, if you see that label in places, that's the OMRI, Organic Materials Review Institute. That means that it is an approved source for organic gardening. You don't have to do it that way, but if it's important to you, this would have it. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to fill up these flats here really nice with the seed starting mixture. And it looks like 1 bag will be all I need to fill up 2 trays. Now, one thing to keep in mind is that because of the peat content in here, it is going to take a little bit of time to actually get these to absorb enough water. So before I even start planting seeds, my next step after this is going to be to actually add some water in here, because it, for whatever reason, peat actually resists absorbing the water. So here you can see a nice layer of seed starting mix. The next step, of course, is to add some moisture to it. This is not vinegar, just so you know. These are cleaned out, washed out containers. I like them because they're pretty sturdy plastic containers that I can reuse for a long period of time. So all I'm going to do is come in here and just kind of try to evenly distribute the water in here to let it start absorbing. All right, now once we've done that, we're gonna have to wait a little bit for it to kind of absorb through, and then we'll come back in and we'll do our seeds. We're actually gonna line out the seeds as if we were lining out a garden bed. So there's going to be several rows of several different things, but we're going to put in little dividers in there so that the dividers are going to keep everything separated, and they're going to be labeled because we'll go mark them. Labeling is so important. I can't tell you how many plants I have forgotten what they are just because I failed to label. Now, while I'm waiting on those to absorb the water, I'm just going to take a pair of scissors and cut up some cardboard. This is just kind of the ends of some boxes here, nothing on them, just plain. And I'm going to be using those and sliding in my dividers so that when I have it in here, you can see right there like that, I'm going to be able to divide up my plants into different little sections within each tray. And that's just going to try to keep myself organized so I'm not messing up and getting my jalapenos mixed up with my sweet peppers. And we'll see how many divisions. I may have to move these around a little bit, but they will stick in here pretty good. And then when I'm done, I can just throw these pieces in the compost bin. All right, so here you can see everything I've got in here. I've got about 9 sections in the pepper area and about 11 sections over here, which is just exactly what I need for my tomatoes to go in this tray and then my peppers to come over here into this tray. So what I'm going to do is for each one of these, I'm going to put a little bit of a row right through there where I'm going to put my seeds in. And those rows will grow the seeds, and once the seeds have a little bit of growth on them, I'll take the plastic lids off, which I'm going to have a plastic lid on this. And when I take that off, it's going to grow up a little bit more, and then I'm going to individually plant them in separate pots to grow on. I use a coir type pot, which they come like this. Those are 3-inch pots that I can separate, and it's a little hard to do with one finger. There we go. But they look like this, and they are very good at allowing the roots to go right through this. They're biodegradable, but it does take some time for them to actually break down. Usually I'll find them in the garden, I'll take them, I'll throw them out, and the birds will use them for nesting material or something. Or you can throw them back in the compost bin and let that decompose over time. So that's the plan. Is step 1 is putting them in these trays, starting the seeds, and once the seeds have gotten growing good, transplant them into this to grow on, and then I direct plant them in the vegetable garden. Now, when you're labeling stuff, you want something that's going to be there. You don't want it to fade out. You don't want it to get all wet and soggy like this cardboard might do. So I'm just going to use the cardboard as dividers, but I'm going to use mini blinds to write on and actually label what I've got in different spots. And mini blinds are great because you can take them off, you can just write in pencil on them, and the pencil will stick for a considerable length of time. Yeah, and I've used them several years in a row, just crossed out what was on it and then put something new on the other side to conserve that. But they, one set of mini blinds will get you a lot of labels. Just cut them to about that size or whatever, and then I'm going to do it horizontally, across here, and then lay it down very much like this right there in front of it, so that when I've got my row of peppers right in that spot there, I'll be able to see what that row of pepper actually is. All right, so let's talk about what I'm actually going to be planting this year, and I'll show you some of these varieties that we're going to go through. First, let's start over here with the peppers. Okay, now we got this one here. It's Jigsaw. I'm going to plant that in some ornamental places there. They're edible peppers. You can do it. They're just a little bit on the hot side, which is fine with me. I'll get some plants that look really nice, as well as some nice hot peppers as well. I've got Craig's Grand jalapeno, which is a really good jalapeno. I like it. And this brown jalapeno, the heat on it last year was my first time trying it, but the heat on it was kind of inconsistent. Some of the peppers were really hot. Most of them were kind of mild. So what I did like about this is we made some bacon wrapped jalapenos, which were really tasty. Bacon wrapped jalapeno poppers. And so I want to do that again. They just did really well. They were large size jalapenos that got about that big. Really good. This one was new, pumpkin spice jalapeno. And mostly call that probably because it looks like the same color as a pumpkin. And it's spicy. So there you go. Pepe Rosso, which is a nice mild sweet pepper, an Italian one. And I've got 2 packages of that one because I didn't know how many I had in the first one. A lot of times I'll buy seed from different years. Now this one here is Golden California Wonder. I've got two different packages on it, but this one actually has the picture of it. Golden California Wonder. That is a sweet bell pepper. So we'll do that one. We have this one, which is an orange bell. This is a standard one I do every year. Cuadrado de Asti Rosso. That is a really nice looking pepper right there. And those are good, really tasty. And here is the Pasilla Bajo, if I pronounce that right. That's kind of what they look like. Most of those seeds come from Baker Creek, but also got this one here from Botanical Interest. So, you know, diversify your seed companies a little bit, probably more so than what I do. That way, if one's got a shortage, then you at least have an opportunity to go to another one that you're comfortable with. So for tomatoes, the tomato that I do every single year is this one. It's called Whittle Orange. It is a delicious orange slicing tomato. I love them. They're great. But I was interested in trying something new that was also orange, so I got Dad's Sunset tomato. And what I like about the picture, at least, I've never tried this one before, is how meaty the tomato looks. It doesn't look like it's going to be all juice and runny, so when you put it on a burger or a sandwich or something like that, it's not going to get your buns all wet. Anyway, this one here is Glacier. It's got a 55-day period, and so I'm hoping that this maybe will be one of the first ones that we produce, getting some early tomatoes in real quick. It is semi-determinate, so it's not going to be going all summer. We'll probably remove it at one point. And then Rutgers, which is a determinate type of tomato. I'm probably going to try some of these in pots, put them on our back deck. Black Krim, another kind of dark colored red tomato, kind of on the purplish side, but it's a really good tasting one. It's a classic. I tried this one for the first time last year, and I will say it had a little bit of a pest issue right at the beginning, but when I was actually able to get some fruit from it, it was really good, really meaty, and really big. So why not give it another shot? San Marzano, that's another classic kind of paste tomato. A lot of people love this one. And then these were really good. Blueberries, it's a cherry style tomato. They will turn kind of a purplish color over here the longer you leave them on. Actually, I think it's the other way around. They'll turn red eventually. I don't know. I don't remember. They were good. Sunrise Bumblebee, that is another heirloom, kind of an orangish color cherry tomato. And when in doubt, go with the Sun Gold. Sun Gold tomatoes are delicious. Little cherry tomatoes. Can't go wrong with the chocolate cherry tomato. And I actually left out a pepper that I forgot. That is just your typical cayenne pepper. We'll use that in some sort of a spice blend at the end of the season. And then we have the tomatillos. That's just the San Jacinto tomato, not tomato, tomatillo. And then this one, the Queen of Malinanco. I tried it last year. I didn't get anything to work last year on this one, so I'm going to try it again and see if I can get some results from it. Now, your planting procedures for peppers or tomatoes are going to be virtually the same. They're both in the same family, and so they're really easy to grow just the same way. Peppers, of course, and tomatoes like the heat, so I definitely recommend getting a heat mat this time of year. We are at the very end of February. In fact, tomorrow is March 1st. And it's still going to have some cold days here until April 15th actually is our frost date. So we'll still get some cold days in between now and then, and it's not safe to be outdoors with this stuff. So that's why you need the heat mat. But over here, you can see where I'm going to put them. And all I'm going to do is create a little bit of a trench right there. And then we're going to just drop them in. Pretty simple. So we'll space them out probably about an inch apart, like that. Try to get them all in there. In fact, I'll add one more here. And then we'll just cover them back up again. And when we're done with all the tray, we'll come back and we will water the entire tray to get the top level nice and wet so that those seeds have plenty of moisture. So here you can see how I've got it labeled. I've got that mini vine piece right here with Orange Bell written on it. And this slot here is where those orange bell peppers are going to be. And I'll do that for each and every one of these little areas here. Keeping it organized is extremely important, especially so if you're selling the plants at a farmer's market or a roadside stand, something like that, because you've got to be able to know what you're selling somebody. You don't want to sell them a jalapeno pepper when they were trying to buy an orange bell pepper. Those are quite different peppers. So I got all these seeds planted. As you can see here, here is the pepper tray. All those different types of peppers going in there. See how I've got them labeled. I've got those mini blind pieces all marked up with pencil. It's real simple. And then over here, I got the tomatoes going through. Just like that. Now you keep them separated until they're large enough to have some roots forming and they're not going to be moving around a whole lot. But that's going to keep them nice and marked, and I'm not going to get confused as to what is what and where it all goes. So the next step is to come in and water on top of these to get some of this top layer of seed starter mix moist. If I were to pull this up and look down in the tray, you can see there that there's some moisture that's crept through, but it is gradually wicking up through this potting medium right here, this peat mixture, and it's going to pull up into those seeds. But I'd like to go ahead and push it down a little bit more, make sure that the seeds get plenty of water in there. Now the other thing that's really important when you're seed starting is always start some extra. You never know if a seed is going to germinate or not. They may have good viability, but maybe they don't. A lot of my seeds are from 2014 and 15. Tomato and pepper seeds last a very long time if you keep them in a dry environment, which I've done. I keep them in plastic bags in a large plastic tote. You can see just like that. And so these have a long period of viability, but eventually those seeds are not going to germinate. So plant some extras. If you end up with extra plants, that's great. You give them to some friends, you give them to family, maybe you sell a few here and there and make a little bit of money on it. But it's better to have some extra just to cover some poor germination rates that could possibly happen. So I actually ran out of room in those flats to do the tomatillos, which I'm going to work on next. But these, I think I'm going to go back to my other method of doing it in a plastic cup, where I use that as a little greenhouse. So I'm going to do that next, and we'll get those planted up. I won't actually show this in this video because I think we're getting a little long on this video here. But I'm going to do those. I also forgot to do my chili peppers, the cayennes. And so I'll do those in a separate container there too. What I do like about doing it in this method here is you can contain it in a very small space, and you can do a lot of different seedlings in one of these little cups very easily. And when I was doing a farmer's market plant sale business, this is how I did it. I would get probably 10 to 15 little seedlings started in here, quickly transplant them up when they had a couple of leaves on them, and then put them out into the larger pots like I showed you before and sell them like that. So I would sell those 3-inch coconut pots to people, and what was great about it is they were really good starter plants. I used good soil, I had good seeds, and they were unique plants that you couldn't find at the local box stores or nurseries. They were, I mean, you face it, if you go and you buy your own seeds, you can get whatever you want. There are thousands of varieties of seeds out there that you can choose from, and the people locally are curious. They want to experiment. So like if you're wanting to do hot peppers, some really spicy peppers like the ghost pepper or the Carolina Reaper or things like that, there is a market for it, and so you can actually sell those to some folks. So I'm Dave with Growing to Home Garden. I hope you enjoyed this. I'm gonna get these in my garage, put them on the heat mats here soon, and then give you an update in a few days to show you how they're doing. Oh, one thing I forgot. A couple weeks ago, I got a little antsy, wanted to start some seeds, and so I did some coral bells. These are heucheras. You can see there I've got a whole lot of little heucheras in a small space. They germinate so easily. They're teeny tiny seeds. So I'm going to wait till these start to develop a couple more leaves, and then I'm going to put them out. So anyway, for real this time, I'm Dave with Growing the Home Garden. I really appreciate you watching. Please hit the like button if you found this useful, and subscribe. I'd love to show you some more garden stuff this year, and we'll catch you later.